eventually you get absorbed in, and you are Sonic.
Hey everybody, and welcome to No Repeat, a podcast where we pick 3 songs every week with no repeats and no do-overs to create a perfect playlist for every occasion life throws at you. I'm your backseat driver, Taylor Olmstead, and joining me are my co-passengers, Tyler Reed.
Do you guys ever get sad sometimes?
And Sean Evans.
Your love doesn't even understand what our love is like.
I'm pretty sure Tyler's used that exact same intro before, but we're just going to keep it rolling. We're going to keep it moving. We're all about forward momentum here. In 2022, keep it moving. Tyler, what was our challenge this week?
This week, we were trying to find the perfect song for staring out the car window on a rainy day when you're 14. Submitted by Andrew Wood. Please don't fight him on the line. Thanks, Andrew.
I don't know about y'all, but this challenge really took me back. I spent a lot of time in the car as a kid. So my family, like my immediate family, was the segment of both sides of the extended family that moved away. And so for every major holiday, we had to drive at least 3 hours to visit some relative somewhere. So every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, birthdays, weddings, funerals, just forever in the car. And I logged thousands and thousands of hours on my old iPod Classic sitting in the back of various cars that my family owned. And the age as well felt really specific because 14 was like peak middle school, real hormonal, like I just want to be able to drive my own car. I don't want to go to this family function. This sucks. I don't like this. Parents just don't understand. Like, it was just really evocative to me. So I had a deep well of experience to pull from on this one. But what about you guys?
So this was a perfect challenge because it was specific and unexpected.
Yes.
You're kind of like, you have to really think about, you have to go to that place like you said. For this one, I definitely had a very specific song that I have a very specific memory of it being raining in the car with my mom driving to like get like Chinese or whatever. I had a very specific memory of that. And so, I almost picked that song specifically, but I think I wanted to kind of pick another song that sort of made me sort of feel this way in another way, or like somehow like was sort of like in that same vein that I feel like would maybe have a little more legs to it. That I feel like I could say a little bit more about. Because what I realized was, I feel like when you're at that age, you don't always necessarily have control over what you're like listening to. Because, in our age, old, because we had to listen to CDs. So like you had to either, you're 14, so you either had to buy it, burn it. But so like you had a real like, there's a real gate, there's a real filter for what you could actually have access to and listen to during this time. And so I kind of wanted to go back and I wanted to think about a song that I would maybe listen to in retrospect during that time, with the full breadth of songs and albums and stuff from that era that I could listen to. So I was just trying to think of a song that sort of evoked a certain sadness or forlornness or was like wistful. I wanted something that felt like just had a little, just didn't make me overtly sad, but just sort of made me feel something. And of course, all of these songs that we probably were listening to at this time were for relationships or situations that we had no reason hearing or knowing about. In retrospect, it was real weird, the stuff we listened to and the things that people talked about.
Oh yeah, I'll get to that in B-sides, don't you worry. Sean, what about you? Did this have any particular personal experiences tied to it?
No, not really, not particularly, which is weird because I feel like when you hear what my song is, you can kind of say like, yeah, I probably knew of this song at the time, but really I felt like I tried to pick a song that if I was a 14-year-old today and I was really like angsty about stuff and it was like a rainy winter day like it is today, like what song would I probably be listening to? And I feel like I follow Smashing Pumpkins, spoiler alert, on Instagram, and it surprises me how many reposts they have of like like high schoolers, like wearing their stuff. And I don't know if it's because if it's in Target or whatever. I feel like it's not. I feel like it's actually like merch off their website. So I feel like there is this underground contingent of high schoolers that are into 90s music. And I also think I would have liked this song at the time. It would have been more relevant for me at the time. Like, it probably would have been popular. I feel like Bullet with Butterfly Wings, which was not what I picked, did come out when I was around 14 or 15 years old. So it kind of would have worked. I guess it's just like kind of full circle now that we're here. But that's kind of what I was going for, because I thought the challenge was pretty easy until you put the 14-year-old in it, and then you just have to go to this weird 8th to 9th grade place where you're like probably on the verge of doing something that will actually be what you remember of what will soon to be your high school years. And like, I was trying to remember, like, how did I feel? Probably mad, like angsty a little, but like, I don't know. So it was a little strange, but it was also a little easy because I feel like if I would have picked it for my 14-year-old self, I wouldn't have picked this song.
Oh, see, I went directly to my 14-year-old self. So what I did was I did a like run through of the Apple Music. I'm sure Spotify has these too, like alternative hits of 2004, 5, and 6. Because I turned 14 the summer of 2006. And so I was like, any song from these like 3 years would have probably been on my iPod at the time. Because I remember that was like right before I entered high school. And it was purely like music that I had discovered on my own or had picked up from the public library, which was always like clean versions of CDs that were at newest maybe 6 to 12 months old. And my librarian, I had a really cool librarian that was into like the kind of music that we listen to now. And I credit her with like picking out a lot of the CDs that I grew up with. But it wasn't like it was when I got into high school and had you guys and other people who were older, who had more eclectic tastes. And we were like all buying CDs and sharing them with each other. You know, I feel like this was kind of like Tyler said, like there was a lot less access to music at the time. I'm pretty sure this is actually when I got my first iPod. Like I had a janky Rio MP3 player before that could only hold like 100 songs. And so I feel like this was probably the very beginning of my like just acquire discs and discs and discs of music because I have iPod space to burn years. And so that's where I think a lot of like my long car trips were spent. Like when we talk on the show about like music history stuff, a lot of my knowledge of that is based on like going to the library and ripping every single Beatles CD they have, or every Stones CD, or every Who CD, and putting it on that first iPod and just like spending every car trip listening to like, I'm going to listen to every Who album in order.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like there was new stuff that was out that was really exciting to me at the time. And I remember feeling like rock and roll was really exciting. And like, it was the first time where I felt like I had my own music, you know?
Yeah. I feel like if I was going to do this, like this almost would have been my recommendation for if I knew somebody that was like, if I had like a nephew or somebody who was about this age and they're like, it's like a rainy day and they're like, I just want to listen to some music. I'd be like, here, check out the Smashing Pumpkins. There might be something in there that you like. It just fits you when you're about that time, later on too. But also to clarify, this song I think came out in 1996 and I was not 14 in 1996. But
yeah,
probably would have been around the Smashing Pumpkins were around when I was.
We should just go ahead and do your song, Sean.
Okay, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, let's do it. What do you got?
Okay, so this week I chose Zero by the Smashing Pumpkins.
Wanna go for a ride? She's the one for me. She's all I really need. Oh yeah, she's the one for me. Emptiness is loneliness and loneliness is cleanliness.
So I kind of like led up to it a little bit because immediately when I was thinking about stuff and we'll talk about it in my B-sides a little bit more. There are some more relevant 14-year-old songs that I have. But I think there's, like I said before, I wanted to capture the idea that a 14-year-old today, if they're looking out on a rainy, cold day and they're feeling like I felt, like what would they want to listen to? And I think like 90s rock music is not irrelevant to them. I think they're familiar with some of the bigger bands like we were with classic rock. Like when we were 14, we knew who, like Taylor said, we knew who the Beatles were. We could name a Boston song probably. Like Aerosmith was pretty relevant. Like we all kind of grew up on the same flavor of cereal musically. That's what you had. And you turn on classic rock radio, which is probably what our families listen to a lot. And I feel like those are out there, not in the same way that you like. I don't think kids are listening to the radio. But if you go into like,
No one's listening to the radio right now.
Anthropology or
Urban Outfitters,
a Target or a Urban Outfitters or something, you're finding these like 90s band t-shirts that are out there. You're finding a little bit older, but I feel like it's more prevalent to find some of the more 90s-esque bands, because I feel like there's a lot of modern day artists, when they say like, who'd you listen to when you were growing up? They're our age, and they're saying bands like, the Smashing Pumpkins, like I was listening to him, Nirvana, like, right, who inspired you? That's what they're saying. If they're not, trying to play it cool and say like, oh no, I was listening to some indie artists that you probably would have never heard of. They're from Nova Scotia. They're probably going to say like, yeah, I was listening to this. Smash Mouth. They'll probably say that because it's like very memeable, right? And I think if you want to get like a good introduction into like the emotional rock music of the 90s and the early 2000s, Smashing Pumpkins is a very grabbable band because they had lots of hits. They had lots of albums that were kind of flops. Like Billy Corgan has a very abrasive personality. They broke up, but they always kind of leaned into having some of the more like avant-garde arty stuff happening in their band, and they still found popular success. So like, I don't know if there was probably any other album that was like had 150 tracks. It seems about like Melancholy and Infinite Sadness. Like who was
Right.
releasing a double album on CD and it was going like US #1? Probably no one, especially when you consider like their first albums like Gish was basically shoegaze. Just the fact that like within a decade they were doing they started out doing shoegaze and they ended up almost going to this like techno rock where you basically didn't even need half the band. Plus Billy's like 500 side projects, like was it Zwarg or whatever? I don't even know all these ones, but I think when you listen to this song, when you listen to Zero, it like expresses this amount of like 90s self-hate that I feel like that esteem when you're the age of 14 just is not particularly high unless you're lived a very like good childhood, and you're probably having all these feelings that you don't know about because you're like, becoming an adult person. Crazy to think that like 200 years ago you would have been halfway done with your life. Like 15 would have been your midlife crisis, and you would have been just getting into Smashing Pumpkins if they were around 200 years ago. Like how weird is that to think about? But so like, yeah, and I think that dive into this lyrically a little bit, like finding yourself, hating yourself, being in love, seeing people around you that you can't have, knowing that you're not good enough. Like it kind of like maybe gives you some of these feelings, maybe helps you feel some of these feelings that you'll probably later on in your life will develop in more complex ways or just go away in general if you're really lucky. So I don't know. I just felt like this was a good 14-year-old rainy day song.
I am so glad that you picked this for this specific challenge, because I still remember one of my only music friends at the time when I was 14. His name was Ted, and Ted gave me his double CD copy of this to borrow over a weekend. And I remember just being absolutely blown away by Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. Like, it has Baroque pop, but it also has Zero, which is like a borderline heavy metal song. And then it's got Bullet with Butterfly Wings, which is like a whole different heavy kind of rock feel. And then it's got ballads, and it's got Tonight Tonight. And I was like, what is this band?
Right.
And I remember coming back to school on Monday and being like, dude, I don't know what this is, but it's awesome. And he's like, I know, right? And then Ted, became a basketball player and was too popular to hang out with me. But I am still very great.
Did you hold on to his copy of Melancholy and Infinite Sadness?
No, I brought it back to him on Monday because I just ripped it to my iPod like everything else.
Oh, well, man. Okay, good.
But yeah, I just remember being like absolutely floored by this. And I'm sure I spent many a rainy day just like staring into the middle distance with this record on. It is such a 14-year-old record. It's like, here is everything that rock and roll can do and then some. With, like you said, this kind of like naivety and like borderline self-hate, but also like a strange optimism. Like not a true optimism, but a kind of like, when you hear a song like Tonight, it has like a romantic optimism to it that is also like really vulnerable and really afraid of getting hurt, which is how I felt a lot of the time in my early teenage years of like, every time I open myself up, the world like, pops my balloon. And that's kind of how, I think a lot of people feel as teenagers, and that's why Smashing Pumpkins resonates so well. This also, like, for the specific setting of the challenge, I think, like, it's got a good driving beat. It keeps you moving. It's a little dark, rainy. I dig it. Also, the drum fills on this track are fucking sick.
Yes. Man, I'm gonna totally beef his name, but David Chamberlain, I think, is the drummer for the Smashing Pumpkins.
That sounds right.
I think he's been there since the beginning. If you listen to his progression over the entire discography, he is amazing. His drum parts on like the newer albums blow my mind. Like, he's such a talented musician.
Nobody pays attention to him.
And he blends in. That's what makes him such a good drummer, is like, you don't hear all the complicated stuff he's doing because it works so good. But when you try and learn what he's playing, it's like, you didn't repeat anything that whole song, and it's not because you didn't do it. It's because you're basically Stuart Copeland, but playing for the Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah, they're like barely fills. It's just kind of like an ongoing interpretive drum piece. It's wild.
I think what's so interesting about this challenge is that it didn't specify how we were supposed to be feeling. I think it didn't say this is the mood. It simply said this is the age, this is what's happening. And so you're staring, raining, and you're 14. And I think it's beautiful sometimes when I feel like we have such divergent thoughts and experiences in this regard, because it reminds me again that how different and unique everyone is and how they perceive like their emotions, because I feel like maybe a 14-year-old me would maybe seek this song out for like if I was feeling a certain kind of way on like a rainy day. But I feel like I feel like I go into despair before, like, I think I would rather find something that sort of like envelops me in sort of the sadness. I'd rather get more into like, I'm more like melancholy than this. This feels like this has like an aggression to it. And I think that's really a really interesting way of interpreting how you're feeling at that age, and then with that, because I feel like rain makes me feel like slowed down, makes me feel reflective, and so I think this song has a great reflection to it. I think there's a lot of introspection to it, but it's, for me at least right now, I'm feeling like, ooh, this feels like I'm going through something and like I'm mad about it, So I think this is totally valid as a pick for this scenario and this occasion. It's just such a different way of interpreting it than I would have thought. But yeah, I love the Smashing Pumpkins. I think this song is surprisingly harder than I was expecting it to be. Like I said, it's kind of so out of the zone I've been in recently, but there's a lot to like it. That Taylor's already kind of said like the majority of like the parts that are good about it. You guys went on a rant about it, but I like it, and I think mostly I'm just marveling. I think I'm just really just interested in your mind, Sean. I feel like you're always like, always like, wow, I have such a beautiful and special mind, but you know what, Sean, this time, love your mind. I love what you got going on in there.
It takes a lot for somebody as arrogant as you to say something like that, doesn't it? I'm just kidding. You got a beautiful mind. I love you.
I didn't realize I was arrogant. That's a good. I'll have to reflect on that.
That's a very arrogant thing to say.
Well, while Tyler is emotionally healing, I guess I will go next. This week I chose Do It For Me Now by Angels and Airwaves.
Time that we kissed and you gave me a lie to add to the scene. You pretended to cry, but I'm here and I'm cool the way that it is. Just give me a chance and I'll try to forgive. And I don't know, and I can't guess if we're gonna be okay, but now my last wish is that you'll do this with me, kiss me here.
Like I said at the top, this was a period when I was really discovering classic rock. You know, I was like listening to a ton of U2 and I was getting into like The Who and all this stuff. And so I was like constantly looking for these like new exciting forms of rock and roll. And I didn't know anything about Blink-182 at the time. I didn't know that they had broken up. I didn't know that this was a spin-off project. But my friend Trent came in with a copy of the first Angels and Airwaves CD and was like, dude, you got to listen to this. It's awesome. It's like sci-fi rock. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'm into that. Because they were doing this whole space thing at the time. And like, I just remember being so impressed by how big it was. Like, the guitars on this record are just huge. And the drums have just like so much space around them. Like, very, not as technically amazing as John Bonham, but definitely like sonically influenced by John Bonham in like the way the drums are mic'd. Big, big, big bass drums that just like ring and reverberate forever. And, you know, I think Tom DeLonge's voice is kind of at his peak, like, California accent here. This is before he got his vocal lessons and really got rid of his yes, you know? But I think it really works for these songs, and for this one in particular. Like, this song has a post-emo, pre-screamo yearning to it that fits his unique vocal style really well. And the addition of the synths and the like repeated electronic elements, I feel like just kind of gives it a little extra flavor to be a little spacey, a little prog rock. Like, I don't know. I really enjoyed this song as a kid, and it has always kind of sounded like driving through big open fields to me. Like, when I hear this song, I think about being in the back of my parents' minivan, like, going through the cornfields between Cincinnati and Columbus, and just, like, staring out the window at, you know, miles and miles and miles of corn.
What album was this? Was this off the first album of Angels and Airwaves?
This is off the first one, We Don't Need to Whisper, yeah.
See, immediately what this makes you think of is like Blink 1, U2. Just because sonically speaking, you have some very like edgy guitar textures. But if you have Tom DeLonge in a band, he is his own brand. And you can't separate him from that. And I appreciate this album. The reason why I just put my hand in my face was because I was so in love with somebody. And this album would just kind of like painted a picture for that during that time. And that's why I was like, is this not the first one? Because The Adventure was like the title track.
I almost picked that, yeah.
Off of this one, it was the single. And I just remember I was like, I'll never love anybody as much as I will at this moment. And this song just perfectly embodies that. And yeah, now I'm just like, it's funny. But it's the perfect 14-year-old song just for that. Because you're just like, Trent's description of this as sci-fi rock is hilarious and almost 100% accurate. I'm going to go with like 98.2.
Well, yeah, because now he's like written multiple sci-fi movies and comic books and like literally worked with the government on alien research. So I feel like Trent was on the nose.
I feel like I was coined as saying that Tom DeLonge is so horny for space. He's just real
He's horny for space.
That is a thing you once said.
Choosing to editorialize that statement because I don't think that would make any sense to what I actually said.
I don't know. I guess I think this is a good choice. I think that this is an upbeat song a little bit compared to mine for a 14-year-old, and I appreciate that. This album was actually pretty good, if I remember, when I was 14. Well, I was probably closer to like 16, 17 when this album came out. Maybe a little older, but whatever. Love. It blinds you to everything.
Well, it was 2006.
Okay, yeah, so I was like 16, 17. So yeah, but I remember like playing the hell out of this album on drums. And of course, this is when, never forget that Tom DeLonge has a type that he puts in his music videos of women. I should point this out explicitly, that Tom DeLonge really enjoys a California blonde.
Yes.
And while he might not... I don't know if there's a California blonde in this video. I'm watching The Adventure right now, and there's about 3. And then every Blink-182 music video definitely has a California blonde in it at some point in time. It's kind of their calling card, as I'm realizing right now. But yeah, what a good Sonic song to be 14 years old and listen to. It really is like shooting in space. That is a total genre makeup that we need to do. Sci-fi rock. That's so good. Trent, thank you. Beautiful work.
Yeah, I had forgotten that there was an era in our history where we pee-poo-pooed on Blink-182. We were like, no, that band, not good. Don't like that band. And then...
Well, yeah, because I remember once I learned who they were after I was into Angels and Airwaves, I was like, oh, that's just the Dick Jokes band.
Yeah.
They're not serious musicians. They just make dick jokes.
Dick jokes.
But, God, yeah, Angels and Airwaves is really just the best parts. Well, I don't want to say too much. I like the latter half of Blink-182 before they broke up and whatever, blah, blah, before Tom left. Because I really do feel like they really captured a sort of pop punk plus. And I feel like Angels and Airwaves is literally the continuation of that, of that style and that methodology. Because it's clearly has the instrumentation of a pop punk band, but it has just a little bit extra, and that's that Tom DeLonge spice to it. I don't know. I feel like I've always just really enjoyed Angels and Airwaves sonically because it feels like like we had kind of already said, he creates a space. He creates a narrative in his songs. He creates you can feel like there's a lot of really good storytelling, and so. And of course, like Sean said, the U2 elements of where it's just lots of reverberation, lots of soundscapes, and I feel like that really brings you to a place. I feel like that really envelops you in the sound. It really kind of makes you get into your feelings in that way. So yeah, I mean, I feel like I almost need to go back to this album. I kind of need to go back to.
You should. You really should. I listened to the whole thing again today before I put my pick in, and I could have picked any song off of this for this challenge.
I think it really deserves more credit. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that you kind of go back to, or that we listen to in its era, and you sort of don't appreciate for what it's doing. And I think I'm still noting on Sean really hit on the head with the U2 element. That's he had to have been that sort of soundscape is really just so. I had to have been bringing it from that perspective because Blink-182 did.
I mean, how could it not be a direct influence?
Yeah, this is good. This works for me.
All right, Tyler, that just leaves you, my man. What do you got?
This week I chose Hold Me Down by Motion City Soundtrack. So, I'm pretty sure I found Motion City Soundtrack on a Steven's Untitled Rock Show segment where he probably played some music video, probably for this song, or probably something from this album. I don't remember exactly, but I ended up picking the deluxe version of this song, or the deluxe version of this album from probably Best Buy or whatever. It came with a special extra bonus DVD or whatever that had them performing live. And for some reason the album was already pretty good, but seeing them perform live and really feeling the energy from that really just took the band to another level for me. Motion City Soundtrack is a pop punk band, but I feel like they have really good compositions. I feel like they don't play it too straight. They have that synth element that I feel like really takes it, that sort of elevates it a bit. But if this is the first song you've heard of them or heard by them, you're probably a little confused by that naming convention, right? As a pop punk band, because this song feels very different. Almost more alternative, almost more indie, sort of in that sort of sound. And so this is sort of an end track, sort of ballad almost. And this song has really just always struck me at how different it is and just the beauty of it. Because I feel like in this era, there wasn't a lot of that. There's a lot of harsh sounds, a lot of intensity, Under Oath. There was not a lot of joy. And so I feel like there's something about this song that really, almost the skeletal nature of it, the simplicity of this, and sort of the dynamics that they then use in this song really get you there. You know, like, I feel like they really let sort of like just a soft drum hit just to kind of sit for a bit. You know, they don't even have everybody playing it all the same time. You know, there's a real softness just throughout the whole song, but then it sort of like builds up and it has this sort of like explosive moment kind of towards the end that really just like makes you well up a little bit. And so, yeah, I think it's just a beautiful song from a genre and a band that really had no right to write something kind of like this. So,
well, we're continuing the Blink-182 connection because this record was produced by Mark Hoppus. So Motion City really kind of like made their name as an opening act for Blink in the latter years of the first incarnation of Blink. And Mark produced a few of their records. That's actually how I discovered them much later on, what was the name of the album?
My Dinosaur Life.
On My Dinosaur Life, yeah, which...
Something like that.
Which was like one of their bigger albums. But I think you're right. Like, this song in particular, coming off of their second record... and one of their like most commercially successful records, it really demonstrates how different this band was from their contemporaries. Like, their ability to bring in emotion in a way that wasn't like pithy, I think is really powerful. Because a lot of bands, if they were writing an end of album ballad at this time, they would have gone like super emo about it. Even Blink-182 with something like, oh gosh, I'm Lost Without You off of the Untitled record. It's just like this sprawling, big, repetitive thing. Hold Me Down is understated. And I can see how, as a kid at this time, this would work on you. A couple of my B-sides are like this, where it's like, it still feels emo, it still feels pop punk, but there's something else about it that just gets you in your feels. You're like, I don't know what it is, but this one makes me feel something.
This is I never really listened to this band that close. Like, I knew of them. I probably had a couple of their CDs. I probably listened to them occasionally. Everything Is All Right was probably the song for me, because I remember I had a Epitaph.
Yep. Taste of Chaos, whatever.
Like, sampler. Yeah, something along those lines. Punk-O-Rama. That was what it was called, because I had like 10 of them, because they were pretty damn good. Like, they had a very eclectic group of artists at that time that were all pretty rebellious.
I distinctly remember pulling those out of your CD binder as a kid. Those Punk-O-Rama compilations. I
mean, that's what I like, because as soon as I got on this and it's like Epitaph Records was at the bottom, I was like, oh, okay, this is funny. Like, I wonder if this company is still around, and they probably are. They probably rep some pretty good people that I probably like today, and I'm just not aware of it. But like,
yep, still around, still run by Brett Gurewitz from Bad Religion.
No, that's why. So basically, Warped Tour, the record company.
Yes.
Okay. Deep cut for anybody from the early 2000s. You'll totally understand what I mean there. Let's see.
The Linda Lindas are on Epitaph, apparently. Throwback to a previous episode.
I never realized that this band was basically a wall of sound that was definable walls of sound. Like, when you listen to this song, there's not a lot of quiet in it. It's a lot of stuff happening, but somehow everybody finds their way into the mix. Like, it's a little fuzzy sometimes, but it's not confusing, if that makes sense. It's like looking at an impressionist painting. If you go really close and look at it, it just looks like blotches of color, but then once you back up, you like see the whole image and you're like, oh, it's a night sky. It's water lilies. That totally makes sense. But if you're like, and that's what I mean, and I appreciate that now. I think that's something that's really cool. I feel like the other part about this band that's really fun to listen to is the drummer and the bass player in this band are like a jazz band. They are like locked in. I don't know if they just recorded them too, like, and then put everything else there on top of it or what was happening, but there's like, everything was overlapping, but nothing is overpowering. That's a good way to say it. I really feel like I need to go listen to them again because there's so much happening here. Although I will say this, my one bad part about this is that guitar tone is horrible. Oh my god, that distortion is bad.
I mean, it was 2004.
Yeah, it was just a little too and not enough like that. That's my only thing. At the time,
There's no warmth to it.
I would have never. Now I get it. I get it because you got to pull through the mix of synth, drums, bass, like whatever else is going on. But it's not. It's just on its own. Ugh.
Well, and part of me has to wonder too, like with Mark Hoppus, a bass player, producing this record, like was guitar tone a priority? Because I think you're right. You really hear the bass and the drums across this whole record, and I bet I know why. But yeah, this is a good album to start with, Sean, if you want to go back and revisit them.
All right, now it's time for notable B-sides. These were songs that were very close to getting on this playlist, but sorry, I guess I'll just have to sit in the car for a little bit longer while we wait to get to Uncle Ben's house.
Oh, I had so many, you guys. Square One by Coldplay. Really anything off of X and Y. That was one of the first CDs I ever got, but Square One slaps. Someday You Will Be Loved by Death Cab for Cutie. Again, basically anything on Plans.
Any Death Cab, honestly, just pick one.
Yeah.
I haven't put them all on there. Put the first 3 albums on there. We're good.
Killing Loneliness by Him. Such a good song.
Yes!
But then the one that really, really hit me, an album that truly defined this period of my life that I probably listened to a billion times. Jack's Mannequin, Everything in Transit. I adored that record, and I feel like it totally like led to my love of things like Ben Folds and stuff like that, where it's like rock adjacent piano music, and there's like some Beatles influence, there's some punk influence, but to Tyler's point earlier about songs that we didn't really need to understand at the time, that record is about like queer people and drug use and cancer. Like, it's a sad, sad album. And as a kid, I was just like, there's a lot of emotion here that I feel but don't understand. And so I probably would have picked either Bruised, which is about getting out of a bad relationship, or the bonus track Last Straw, which talks about going home and taking a Vicodin and turning on the news and looking at the president and wondering how he became the president. Which at the time during the Bush administration felt like very transgressive. And now I look back on it and I'm like, wow. Also, the reversed pianos on that track are sick. Last Straw by Jack's Mannequin. Check it out.
La Di Da by Eveline, which is a band that had a random CD at Best Buy that Sean and I were like, we should like pick this up. And I bought it. And I loved it, and it's good. It's just real. I listened back to it, and I played it in the car when it was literally raining, and I was like, this takes me back to a place. This teleports me. But I don't know. I've gotten a little out of favor in that sort of like genre. It's a little intense. It's very technical, but it's it didn't really evoke as much like wistfulness on a follow-up listen as possible. I still really like that album. It's still very good. That's my only B-side.
See, this is like the first time that I have like so many horrifyingly awful great B-sides. So I think, Judith by anything off of A Perfect Circle, like whatever would have been there. Judith is the song, but A Perfect Circle, just go ahead and go on there and pick a song. If you're 14 years old and you're like, you think that you're basically the intelligentsia of your high school, you probably can find something on one of their albums where you're like, Maynard James Keenan is a brilliant artist and he sees my soul. And you'll laugh about it in 20 years, but you'll still say like, wow, there were some really accomplished musicians who are making music that was actually graspable and who wasn't Tool.
Spent a lot of time thinking about what I should not
right.
have. Did not need that much time.
I own way too many clothes that said Tool on the front of it that never should have owned.
No one stopped us though, which is the real shame that...
That's the biggest joke of your adolescence, right? Is the fact that you can walk around with an insult on the front of your shirt pretending like you really want everybody to know that you care about that. So, joke's on me. Ha ha ha. I get it. Funny times, hot topic. You're trolling us to this day and making us pay for it. I know, I probably put it on here already. Muse's Time Is Running Out. Great song. Would have made it on here all the time. I have The Pretender by the Foo Fighters. Awesome song. Take You Back Sunday, Cute Without an E. Gonna have a very emo song on here that will do it. Yellow and Blue by The Used. That's a more orchestral version of The Used there, but still a very good 14-year-old. I hate this so much. Oh my god, probably throw Under Oath in there somewhere. Like first album Under Oath would have been here. 14-Year-Old for me would have been a little bit before their second album came out. Trying to think what the title track of that one was. Oh yeah, Under Oath, whatever. Second album, that was it. It was very artsy, very screamo-y. Yeah, we'll go with that.
That's about the time In Rainbows came out too, isn't it?
Yeah, it was right about that time too.
That also probably would have been. There's probably something there for Sean's mentality, his mind state for that. I feel like there's some cool stuff in there.
Radiohead was a little over my head at the time.
Okay.
I think it was a little too arty for me. I needed to have something that was drum playable.
That's fair. I liked it. I just didn't know why or what even it was.
The gift of Radiohead.
All right, well, Tyler, if people can drive you to the mall, where should they let you know?
Can we stop by Auntie Anne's? Need a pretzel, baby. Hey, everybody. You can find my design illustration work at RudePets.club. And as always, find me on socials as RudePetsClub on Instagram and Twitter.
Sean, if people are interested in your carpool to high school, where can they sign up?
I leave late and I arrive early. Instagram, Telly-Sean.
And if you want to swing through the drive-thru with me, you can find me on the socials at TC Olmstead. All of these songs will be on our official No Repeat podcast playlist. Our extensive list of 14-year-old B-sides will be on the B-sides playlist, which is maintained by our super deluxe edition podcast pal, Ivan Glasgow. And we'll be back next week with another episode of No Repeat.